So the first sort of big chunk of questions are around sort of just the more theoretical sort of interpretation of concepts. Sure. And then the ones under government of PEI are where I'm trying to get at the empirical or what you view as being sort of like the reality. The first part is going to help me in just understanding that broad range of ways that people, senior leadership, understand concepts. Sure. And the second is going to be where I am going to say, not basically this is what policy is like. Right. So for the first very broad question, how do you understand the term public policy? What comes to mind, or what do you think of?
So I view it, I guess I would say in sort of the broadest sense, which is the reasons and rationale for why government does what it does. Great reasons and rationale. Yep, that's perfect. And then what about the term policy capacity? I see that, I guess, how well positioned or not government is to be able to develop policy.
Great. And is there any certain specific either things or skills that will create well-positioned governments?
I think that you have to have people, first of all, it's human resources is it.
Yeah.
Really. I think that you need to have people that both have the a skill set that is reading, writing, research, communication, but you need to have those same people with a measure of experience or understanding of the area in which they're working. Sure. That I say a measure. I don't think you necessarily need to be an expert in X to be a policy analyst or a policy person in X. But I think that, particularly, say, for instance, in our justice world here, we just went through some building in our department around policy capacity. Right. And it was very important that we had sort of individuals with that sort of fundamental grounding, just because the principles that pertain in this work are very, how do I say it? They're infused in everything, right? And it's very difficult it's a very steep learning curve, I would say, in this world. And again, I'm not familiar with the policy development capacities in other departments. Sure. And so maybe someone in your shop would say the same thing about the agricultural world, whatever the case may be. Yeah. But that would be, I think that it's to have someone with the basic skill set, the interest, the kind of knowledge of, a particular area, but then also I think an interest. Right. I think that's key as well, because that's where you're going to get people who are, motivated to pursue.
And have you thought about, because this comes up in sort of the policy capacity literature sometimes, and you're kind of touching on it a bit but the idea about generalists and versus experts. Yeah. So one, I guess, do you see value for generalists in policy? And two, how do you define the term expert, or what do you think of that term?
So I don't know that experts are really. I don't know if that's the other end of the spectrum, or that I don't know if that's the gold standard. Is what I'd say, because I think experts also tend. No, that's too much of a generality. I'm going to walk that back.
It's okay.
I think that the notion of a generalist policy person may work in certain areas, or in certain subject areas. Like I think the social sciences may be more. And again, this is just my sort of my personal opinion and perception. I think that it might work well there, but anywhere where there is a requirement for either a technical understanding of, be it science, or in the justice context, general legal principles around, whether it's division of powers, charter, those kinds of basics that again infuse kind of everything that we do. Right. I think that's really where I think there needs to be not necessarily expertise, but like I said, that grounding, so we're not starting from square one.
I totally understand.
So like I said, a generalist might be quite capable of working, in any number of say in the government context, in different departments. But if you are looking for, sort of, I don't know, like taken in the environment department, you wouldn't want a generalist policy person setting, policy necessarily around, I don't know,
climate change.
Right. Like, something where you would need to have that some kind of technical grounding or understanding of the basics of the world.
Sure.
In which you're working. So
okay, great.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it totally does. Yep. So another really general term, but I've heard it a lot, so I'm trying to dig into this a bit, is the term policy work. So what comes to mind in terms of skills or work types when you hear that term, policy work?
And I think policy work, I see it as very much the action or the task that accompanies the ultimate sort of landing on a government policy.
Great.
So it's the doing of the research, the doing of the consultations of the, with stakeholders or whoever, government, internal to government folks or that kind of thing.
Perfect.
So I see it as the tasks that accompany the tasks that you do in the development of public policy.
Okay, great. I love it. Okay. Okay. This term probably has more resonance with you, but the term evidence.
Yeah.
Because you'll be the second lawyer I talk to, so I'm really interested. So how do you understand this term evidence in the context of either government or public policy?
Right. So let me think about that for a second. Yeah. I would say, Bobby, that it is external or objective, be it facts or the collection of opinions, like I'm thinking, in a survey or or those kinds of things, where it is that you can use material to ground and to justify, right? Like those, I'm not articulating this as well. It is something external to the process or to the individuals or entities that are developing the policy.
Yep.
Something that is used, like I said, to ground the decision making.
Sure. And is there a type, from your observation, when you look across your experience, either in government or this department, is there a type of evidence that you think has more credence or that tends to have more power over other types of evidence?
I mean, statistical, evidence is always, in our world, particularly with the work that we do with the Canadian Centre for Justice Statistics, and we deal with crime rates, and things like that. So that would often be what would what would come to mind. But I think as well there are other things that I could like I said before around opinions or soliciting feedback. So for instance, we're in the middle of a FOIP review right now, and where we have solicited opinions from the general public, and we've received a number of written responses from the general public. I would consider all of those responses to be evidence of a certain sort of public discourse on the subject. So I would see that as being evidence as well. It's evidence in a different. It's a different kind of evidence, but nevertheless, I think that.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. That one we kind of touched on. So when you think about even this department, and how it's currently set up for public or developing policy, I've heard, and I don't want to assume anything, that many departments will strive to be, say, a policy-driven organization.
Right.
I don't fully understand the term policy-driven organization, but considering if that were something to be which was positive, what would a policy-driven organization mean, or does that have no meaning to you? Is that like?
Well, I could say no. I would say that I understand that. I think if someone were to say to me, we want to be a policy-driven organization, I think that would be okay. We would set our principles and the statement of values, direction,